Hey everyone, Andy Raffel from eTeknix.com. Now, I wanted to do this video for quite some time, but basically wanted to get a little bit more of the facts that are going on out there. And it's all to do with why you should buy a computer now because, well, in all honesty, prices are going to go up. Let's do this. So we've all heard about coronavirus. Depending on where you are in the world, it may have even hit your country. And firstly, I want to sort of, give out my condolences to anyone who's actually been affected by coronavirus. Secondly, I want to move on to kind of what that means for our industry, the industry that I know and love, that I've been doing for, the best part of kind of a decade and a half, and the one that I love to sort of, bring information and stuff to you guys. Now, the biggest part of that information that I have to bring to you is all down to the price of computer components, and not just actually computer components, but anything to do with technology. Now, when you actually look at the fact of what's going on in the world, where it stems from, and what kind of backlash that's actually going to give us, this is where I guess a lot of it comes down to projecting what's going to happen and forecasting maybe what's going to happen. But based on, say, the companies that I've spoken to. So I've spoken to quite a lot of companies who, for the most part, aren't even Chinese companies. They are American companies. They are Taiwanese companies, which that's a whole different kind of kettle of fish if you want to open up the whole is Taiwan part of China thing. But I digress. Moving on to where their actual components are made. For the most part, they're made in the likes of Wuhan. They're made in the likes of Shenzhen, Beijing, and all of these other kind of key hubs in China that have warehouses. Now, even if the components aren't made there, you have to think that other parts of the product that you're buying, for instance, is actually made there. So let's take Gigabyte, for instance. They are one of they might actually be the only motherboard manufacturer who still manufacture motherboards in Taiwan. But it doesn't just stop there, because you have to think about all of the components that are on a motherboard. Whether that comes down to the ferrite chokes, whether that comes down to the heat sinks, whether that comes down to the plastic that actually makes up your memory slots or your PCI Express slots, even down to the PCB. For the most part, you will find that they are made in China. So what's going to happen is we are going to end up in a world where things get artificially inflated. Basically, when you look at it, you have supply and demand. And if the supply cuts down or drops, like it has been because the factories have been closed, especially after Chinese New Year, you will find that the demand won't necessarily go down with it. The demand will either stay the same or it will ramp up, especially if people kind of foresee there being a crisis. They will automatically go out and try and buy stuff. And this doesn't just happen with technology. We're even finding where I live in the UK that people are going out and doing this with bread and milk and stuff like that. And that's going to have a knock-on effect, because you've got to think, if you're stockpiling something, someone else in theory is actually going to be losing out. So when you look at the likes of components, what's going to happen? Well, the supply is obviously cut down. I'm actually told by a few different industry sources that the factories are really only at around a 20% capacity at the moment compared to where they normally are. And you do have to remember that a lot of these Chinese factories supply multiple brands. So we've all seen it in the past with cases that look extremely similar. So Thermaltake, Silverstone, Corsair, they all made a case that looked exactly the same. And there's a very good reason for that. No one copied anyone or anything like that. I don't want to go down that whole rabbit hole again from a few years ago. It was all down to the fact that the case was actually made in the same factory. So what's going to happen? Well, from a business standpoint, the person who runs that factory or is the sales rep for that factory could literally turn around and say, look, we know we usually sell you 1,000 parts, you 1,000 parts, and you 1,000 parts. Well, we haven't got 3,000 parts anymore. We only have 1,000. Who's going to be the highest bidder? And it's as simple as that. And they're going to pitch it to these companies. Unless they have an ironclad contract into place, that's exactly what's going to happen. And consequently, it's going to be a bit of a bidding war. And at the end of the day, one of these companies, again, let's take Corsair, Silverstone, and Thermaltake, for instance, one of these companies is going to, well, two of these companies are going to lose out, and one of them is actually going to be in a situation where they've had to spend more than what they normally would for the same product. What's going to happen then? Of course, they're going to have to inflate the price, because they're going to have to try and claw that money back to make the same profit that they were before. So who's going to pay that cost? Sadly, it's going to be you guys. It's going to be the consumer. And I do feel really sorry for anyone who's saving up for a computer at the moment, because I honestly believe prices are going to go up. At the moment, prices are actually really steady. We've sort of had a little look around and things seem to be okay. But in all honesty, I think the first things you're going to see change are going to be sort of your consumable items maybe. So iPhone cables, sort of, your little knickknacks in terms of the technological world. Then you're going to start seeing things like memory, SSD, things that require chips, embedded solutions, things like that. Because like I say, they're going to have to sell to someone who sells to someone who sells to someone. and someone's always going to take a little bit of the money along the way, and it's just going to make things a little bit difficult. So there's that aspect of it. I mean, just to put it into perspective, a company who, I'm not actually going to name names, but one company that we work with quite closely were due to release a mouse around about the time just after CES. So I think it was actually towards the end of January. They've actually now delayed that. Bearing in mind, we have the sample. We pretty much have the review done, dusted, and ready to go. And we've basically been told to hold off on publishing it. And they're now saying that that should in theory go live at around the end of May, so sort of Computex time. I guess that's them kind of forecasting exactly when that particular product is going to be available. And it's not so much that the review stock isn't available, it's actually the stock available to the consumer, because, and I see exactly where they're coming from. Why are you going to release reviews on products if you can't physically go out and buy the product? And we get this day in, day out, week on week. A lot of companies say, look, can you review this as quickly as possible? And when it comes down to us actually finding where it's available, oh no, we're not getting stock for another month. What's the point then? Don't release a review until people can actually go out and buy it. And we've had this quite commonly with a lot of companies lately, and I'm hoping that a lot more are learning from it. But the knock-on effect of obviously these Chinese factories closing down is having a knock-on effect there. We've got samples just literally sitting, even behind the camera as I speak, there's samples sitting there, and I physically can't do anything with them because you physically can't go out and buy them. And at the moment, it doesn't look like you're going to be able to buy them for a very long time. So where do we sort of go from here? Well, the main message behind this video is if you are looking at buying a PC, do it and do it now. It's as simple as that, because prices are going to go up. I can't foresee how much they're going to go up by because I don't know enough about that side of the industry. But based on all the industry sources I've spoken to, it's definitely going to be going up, and it's definitely going to get quite extreme. And as they always say, things always get worse before they get better. So if you are sort of saving up to buy parts now, I honestly feel sorry for you, because you are going to pay inflated prices for it, because it's all down to supply and demand. And if the supply is not there and the demand still is there, that really kind of leads on to inflating prices. So yeah, bit of a hollow one, bit of a weird video, but I wanted to sort of put this message out there. I know a couple of other people have done the same sort of thing, but I wanted to do it from kind of my perspective and what I've spoken to brands about and what they've kind of said to me about things, because as a consumer, you guys don't always get to hear every aspect of the story. So I wanted to sort of portray that across to you as to kind of a little bit of insider industry knowledge, whatever you want to call it. But hopefully it's given you a little bit of an indication as to where the market is now and maybe where the market's heading. I honestly think that things are going to get better towards the end of the year, but as I say, they do have to get a little bit worse first. So yeah, if you're looking at buying a PC, do it and do it now. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, you know exactly what to do. And let me know if you like these kind of videos where it's more just information, not so much about product, but just giving you a little bit of insider industry knowledge. If you do like them, obviously I'll carry on making videos like this. There you go, guys. I will see you in the next one. See you later. Bye-bye.